Well, welcome to Coffee with C.A.R.P. Today's topic is pets for older adults, choosing the right pet. Morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Kathleen Spat, and together with Doreen Sitter and Wendy Johnson, we will be your hosts here today. A reminder to all who are attending that we do record these sessions to be posted on Facebook and YouTube at a later date. So if you're a little bit shy, please turn off your video. You will still be able to participate in the discussion. We will be automatically placing everyone on mute, but feel free to unmute or raise your virtual hand or place a question mark or comment in the chat box when you want to join the discussion. This is a sharing session that we hope will be fun for you to join in, and all thoughts on the topic are welcome. So let's get started with our topic today. I'll maybe just start out with laying a little bit of information, a little bit of groundwork here. Nearly 60% of Canadian households own some kind of pet, and research shows that they're healthier for it. Numerous studies support that owning a pet can decrease stress, anxiety, and depression, as well as lower your blood pressure, decrease your risk of heart attack and stroke. Further research shows that owning a pet may even improve your immunity, making you less prone to common illnesses such as the flu. For older adults in particular, the benefits of owning a pet don't stop there. Pets make the perfect companion. One of the best things about owning a pet is their ability to provide unconditional love. For seniors living alone, having a pet can help ward off feelings of social isolation and the depression that often accompanies it. Owning a pet makes you naturally more active. There are a lot of daily responsibilities that come with owning a pet, all of which help ensure you stay active. In fact, studies show that older adults that own dogs walk an average of 2.2 hours more per week than seniors who don't. More of a cat person? Well, even just the daily responsibilities of feeding your cat, scooping the litter box, and taking time to play can ensure you stay active. Pets can provide emotional support as well. Growing older can come with its own set of stressors. Research shows that just touching a pet can create a calming sensation, making them a great source of emotional support when you need it the most. Having a pet helps you establish a routine. The tasks of taking care of a pet are repetitive in nature and can put seniors into a daily routine, which studies show may slow the aging process. I was all for that when I read that. Owning a pet gives you an added sense of responsibility. After retirement, many older adults struggle to find something that gives them the same sense of usefulness their careers and family responsibilities once gave them. Having a pet can help provide a new sense of responsibility by giving you something to take care of, improving self-confidence and self-esteem. So, can you think of any other benefits that we get from having a pet? Now, these were just some that I pulled off the internet, but can you think of any other benefits that we get from having a pet? Anyone?
Well, one of the things is the ability to just even find, when you have children, you have something to talk about with other people that have children. When you have a pet, quite naturally, you have something to talk about with other people that have pets as well. So it's opening conversations, I think, sometimes. What about you? Obviously, is it Molly? Molly?
It's Myrene.
Myrene, okay. You have a dog, is it, or?
Well, we have grand dogs, you see. We're babysitting.
Yeah. I have a lot of grand puppies too.
No, we no longer have our own pet. As my husband likes to say, life after dogs is great. But we're lucky because we get to enjoy the benefits of them, if you will, whenever we want with our kids' animals. And there are a lot of benefits. There's no doubt. There are. Depends on your stage of life, I think.
I have to say hello, Maureen. Maureen is joining our board as of this week. So, well, welcome aboard. It's nice to see you.
Sure.
Um, one of the benefits that uh, was mentioned on the internet was that when you've got a pet and you take them out walking, it's an opportunity to meet and greet other people and become social, even just on a walk in a park or when you go to a dog park or something like that. People tend to gravitate to you. They'll bring their children over and ask if the children can pet the dog, that kind of thing. Um, my kids, when they were teenagers, and we've had schnauzers now for uh, I guess 30 years, so 30 odd years. We just lost our little guy in the spring, but when our kids were teenagers and older, they would even come home and grab the dog to take it for a walk because they said that the dog was a chick magnet when they took it for a walk. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a point of socialization when you're out with your animal.
There's also the service end of it, like some people that have service dogs and guide dogs, obviously the benefit is there for people that are older to be able to become more active because of their service dog or guide dogs. So,
Absolutely. It's amazing that that was even missed on the articles that I was reading. I never thought of that. Different pets have different qualities and require varying degrees of commitment, energy, and resources. Some pets are ideal for active individuals or people that appreciate a challenge and who want to spend a lot of time and effort in taking care of a pet. Other pets are better suited for people who may not have much energy to expel. Maybe perhaps they live in smaller living environments or have financial constraints. Thankfully, there are pets that meet most every lifestyle: dogs, cats, or perhaps even something a little more exotic like fish, a parrot, lizard, ferret. Um, the list goes on and on. Does anyone here have an unusual or an exotic pet that they can tell us about?
I have two cats. They're
You
very
cat?
exotic. I'll tell you though, the beauty of them for during the pandemic for me was I don't walk them, of course. They go outside by themselves, but they did make me get up in the morning. I mean, a lot of mornings I just would lie there and think, oh, I don't want to get out of bed. But when you got a cat walking across your head, it's breakfast time, you have to get up. And I really learned to value that a lot during the pandemic, I must say.
That's something I've never owned a cat. Well, not since I was a kid. Um, the me having a cat when I was a kid was short lived. I went to a birthday party and the woman gave out kittens as prizes at the birthday party. My mom wasn't impressed, and I begged her to let me keep it. She wanted me to take it back, and we kept it for a while, but we didn't know how to look after a cat, and we had five kids in the household, and it just didn't work out. So the cat didn't stay around very long. But yeah, I hear wonderful stories about the companionship of cats for sure.
Yeah, they're very loving, and they talk, and they pay attention to you sometimes when they feel like it. But like any animal, you have to take care of it. You have to be there for it. I always had to come home from work on time so that I could feed them and things like that. It's a responsibility and a good one, I think.
Mhm.
I think you bring up a good point there, Lynn, that it's that commitment. We have we're committed to the taking care of this pet, and that gives us a feeling of something to do, something to plan for, something that we're held responsible for. And I think as we get older, we sometimes feel that we lose those responsibilities of feeling needed, and a pet can make you feel like you are, well, you are needed. You needed there to take care of them. I think it's really an important point. And I know we lost our dog of 15, 16 years just before in 2019, not 19. Oh my goodness. But fortunately, we got Jaeger just before that pandemic set in. And I have to say, he was a godsend. He really was, to keeping, my husband going out walking him and just getting out and having something. He entertains us every day with his antics. And I think it was a real blessing to have him during the pandemic. And I think a lot of people, I understand there was a huge amount of people that were getting animals from rescue centers during the pandemic.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so too.
Mhm.
I've got a friend that she's more into the exotics and has had some unusual pets, ferrets. Now I can't imagine looking after a ferret. They get into a lot of trouble in the home. They squirrel their way into little tight confines in the house, and at one point in time, it got underneath her stove, and she couldn't rescue it. She had to have somebody come and pull the stove out, and they were terrified that they were going to crush the poor little thing. Uh, how it even managed to get it back behind underneath the stove, I have no idea. Um, and some animals can be quite destructive too. And I think that ferrets they like to chew things. So that's something a person needs to consider when looking at a pet. What what I found on the internet was that birds are considered one of the best pets for older adults. And right at the top are parakeets and canaries as what are the most popular. They're perhaps one of the easiest animals to look after, and they don't disrupt your household like a cat or a dog or some other types of pets do. They're also very acceptable pets to have if you're living in a condo or if you're living in assisted living or something like that, because of the nature of them being smaller and in a cage. Um, they are just an easier pet to manage. Fish. Now, I'm guessing a lot of you have never thought that fish could be a practical pet, but they're not warm and cuddly, but they can provide companionship. And a fish allows you to take care of something without the having all of the stress that you would have with perhaps a dog or a cat. So there's something extremely relaxing about sitting and watching fish swimming by, and they will interact with you through the glass. And I've seen some absolutely amazing aquariums that people have. Uh, uh, some of them are a little bit more labor intensive to take care of. The bigger the tank, the more work it is. But something as simple as having one of these, I think they're called a Japanese fighting fish, and they're a solitary fish, and you can put them in just a bowl of clear water from the tap, and just feed them regularly, and they're they're beautiful, and they live a long time too. So fish can be very therapeutic and very calming, and so that's always an option, is a fish. Now, guinea pig.
I always found them rather noisy. If you're if you're sensitive to sound and you're sitting trying to read and you hear this,
Well,
Is
that's
that a
interesting.
problem for you with two cats and a fish?
Well, that's cute. I never saw that. Or the bubbling of the in the aquarium, the bubbling up of the aerator. Yeah, that they make noises. Sometimes those noises are welcome. Sometimes perhaps.
And fighting fish will fight. If my son, when he was young, put two in a bowl together, I'm not sure it was Japanese fighting or not, but certainly they were fighting, and one didn't come out of it alive. So yeah, you have to be a bit careful that way too.
Well, I know at one point in time we had an aquarium and we had bought all these different fish, and we had a little, and it was a little red-tailed shark, and I'll bet you it wasn't more than an inch and a half long, but he outlived everything else that we had in the tank, and he was in there by himself for quite a while. Not realizing it, he became territorial, and then when we would put other fish in there, he would attack them and kill them, and he was just a little thing. We grew rather attached to him, and we wanted more fish, so we packaged him up and we took him back to the pet shop and said, "Here, can you find a home for him? We don't want to dispense with him, but we wanted to have more fish in our tank, so we had to give him up." Another pet, a little bit more on the exotic line, are guinea pigs. Guinea pigs are cute and might be just one of the best pets for older adults. The downside is having to clean the cage. Fortunately, that can be a quick and easy task, but and they're soft and cuddly too. It amazes me that being a rodent, that they can really be quite affectionate and playful. So guinea pigs are a good option for people, and again on the small side. Rabbits also make good pets for adults. They can be trained to use a litter box, much like a cat, and they can live 7 to 10 years. So you may not, most people gravitate to cat or dog, but in reality, there's a lot of other choices out there, and rabbits are one of them. I would have never thought of that. I had a friend who had a rabbit, and the kids taught it to ride on the front of the bicycle when the kids rode around on the bicycle in the house. So who knew?
How about
So
hamsters?
yeah, I don't know. Can you teach hamsters to do things?
Well, they
Well,
go.
we've had a couple, but go ahead, Wendy.
No, I was just going to say that the kids had hamsters when they were younger, and they, yeah, I don't know if they really were trainable. They certainly, as far as any human or any creature is trainable. I'm not sure. They did a lot of running around and spinning on the wheel, and yeah, kids enjoyed them. They were fun. They don't have long lives, of course, but yeah, fun.
We don't-
I read somewhere that the purpose of hamsters is to teach children about death.
I think one of the purposes of any pet is to teach children about death. Because I remember when I was a little kid, we always had cats and dogs in the house. Mom, it followed me home, and there it would be. But they all died fairly early deaths. They got hit by cars or eaten by a dog or something like that. And that's your first experience of death, actually. So it's unhappy, but it's not a bad thing.
Now that you mention it, um, that was true of the hamsters. We had Annette, Babette, and Colette, and the last one was ABC, just cause. And ABC was spinning around one morning while we were having pancakes, and all of a sudden the cage went very silent, and both kids looked up and their eyes started to tear, and they looked over, I think ABC is dead. Okay, so then we went over and sure enough, ABC had gone to the ABC world. And so we, we had a conversation and that reminds me, that probably was our first conversation about death and,
That's good.
what happens and or not. So yeah, good reminder.
Um, little things that we don't realize have a big impact, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Something,
yeah, teaches
Go
them
ahead.
responsibility too. I mean, our kids always had dogs in the house, and they had to feed them, they had to walk them, they had to do. So it does have a sense of teaching, kids responsibility as well.
Mm.
Well, the interesting thing is that most people get pets because they have children. And a lot of people fail to realize the advantage of pets when you start to get older. And I mean, being dog people here, um, we just it has just been an absolute wonder to us. And we started out with pets because of the kids, but then the kids move away and they leave the pets behind. And then when you lose that pet, and it's not long afterwards, and you're getting another pet because you really miss that companionship and the presence of that loving animal in your home. So yeah, we noticed a big change, in between having a pet in the home and not. Does anyone have some advice for someone considering an exotic pet? Has anybody had experience with an exotic pet?
They get bigger. They, probably one of not a good decision, but so I'll go back a few years again, but had an iguana in the household and sure, but they get bigger and uh, that would be my one piece of advice is to just remember that.
Yeah,
are
I
you
think.
telling me
Yes, sir.
you didn't visit the Regina Science Center then?
No,
Because they had an iguana too.
not at the time, but
Okay,
probably would have been a better idea.
yeah. It was not small.
I know as kids, when our parents didn't get us a dog or a cat, we went out searching for pets, and we brought home snakes, and we brought home frogs, and we did have salamanders, and we even brought home gophers. I mean, just just about anything that we could catch in the wild, we brought home as a pet because we wanted pets, and mom and dad weren't warming to the idea. We did eventually get dogs, and we had dogs as we were growing up, but we continued to bring in all kinds of exotics that we were finding in the wild. Um, so what I think we'll do is I'm going to talk about cats first of all, because first of all, this is not an area of expertise for me.
I want you
What
to
I
I want you to meet Trout before he goes away. He's my companion at my computer. He likes
Hello, trout.
Trout. Okay,
Oh,
dear.
I love that name. I've got a little bit of information here about cats. They're easier than a dog to take care of. They tend to shed a lot. Long-haired cats require regular brushing, but the brushing itself can be quite enjoyable and therapeutic. It's just a very calming exercise. They can be very affectionate, amusing, and playful. They climb on furniture, tables, and kitchen cupboards, so that's always a consideration. They frequently scratch and can damage furniture. They love Christmas trees. They make great companions, and they can live 15 to 20 years. I've known some to live even a little bit longer than that. Scooping a litter box is better than letting a dog out in the middle of the night. And loud barks are replaced by purrs. of a whiskered friend curled up in your lap. So I don't have an experience with a cat. Tell me a little bit about your experience with a cat.
Oh, well, since I came back to Regina, which was about 40 years ago, um, I accidentally acquired two cats. I was living in an apartment and they weren't allowed, of course, but fortunately my caretaker was in cahoots with me. So he hid the fact that I had two cats in my apartment in the Waverly. And I just found they gave me a sense of home and responsibility and things that I had been missing, I guess, as I wandered the world. And tried to have two cats ever since. This is my third pair. Of course, one usually dies before the other, and then you're torn. But I don't find them hard to take care of, but I do let them out, despite the Regina law that says you're not supposed to let cats out to wander. It breaks my heart to keep them in because they love the out of doors so much. But you have to feed them, clean the box, and wait for them to come and sit on your lap. But they are extremely affectionate, you know. They're very comforting. That nice, warm, furry thing sitting on your lap, purring, makes you feel loved. So that's why we have them. Like dogs. Dogs do the same thing. I uh, I have a lot of dogs in the neighborhood, and my neighbors all walk their dogs, and it's a passing show. I love it. It's a panorama out there.
Do you recommend getting two? If you're going to have cats, do you recommend having that they have a companion, like their own, like two cats?
I would say not necessarily if you're home a lot, but I was always working, so I was not in the house, and that's why I wanted them to have a companion. And when one died, you could really tell that the other one was extremely lonely by itself. You have to try to come home. Well, like a dog, you don't leave a dog alone in the house for a long time. So that's why I always had two, and it was just a habit. They're not, once they're adults, they don't particularly play with each other or anything. You might find them curled up together now and then, but when they go outside, they go in different directions. So they have their own lives. So I don't know. I think for somebody who's home a great deal, an older person who's home a great deal, one cat is you would bond better. The animal would bond with you better. Just one.
Do your cats scratch your furniture?
I have scratching posts. I have in particular places, I have a scratching post so that they will scratch that instead of the arm of the couch. But yes, it has happened. Certainly, I've had my mother always told me that if you really want to have cats, you have to be prepared to reupholster your furniture every 5 or 10 years. So I do.
Well,
Anyone else?
I was an accidental cat owner when my daughter insisted on bringing home a scrawny cat one day. We'd always had dogs, so I told her the cat can stay if it gets along with the dogs. So of course the dogs loved the cat, so the cat stayed. But and we eventually got another cat. Neither of those cats ever scratched any piece of furniture. So I was probably very lucky because I'd never had a cat before. But I think the first cat just kind of decided to be like one of the dogs. So, and when the dogs were gone, we got a second cat, and my daughter left, and the cats were mine. So,
That's what happens.
Yes. Yeah, they rarely take their pets with them when they're setting out into
yeah.
the world.
And such was the case with the iguana.
Well, uh, a strange story. My daughter-in-law, her daughter uh, had a tarantula, and she'd had this tarantula for years, and it was just kind of an ongoing joke. I mean, she kept this tarantula in her bedroom, and then when she grew up and she moved away from home, she decided to move out east, and she had no way of taking the tarantula with her because, well, she was driving. I don't know if she was driving or how she got out east. At any rate, she couldn't take the tarantula with her when she was moving. So my daughter-in-law ended up with the tarantula, and that was the last thing that she ever wanted to look after, much less have in her house. So she looked after it for months until her daughter figured out a way to get somebody who was traveling by car who would bring it, because I guess you can't take them on an airplane. They won't allow you to take a tarantula on an airplane.
Good.
So
That's good to know.
but the first time we were introduced to him, like oh my God, he was just it's just the scariest darn thing. And she would hold it in her hand, and it was as big as your hand, and it was, she'd had it for years, and I thought, okay, well,
But aren't they terribly poisonous?
I don't even understand how that works. I think that you can have them uh, have the stinger removed or something. But yeah, she just loved this thing, and so she's still got him, and she's living out east, and she's a young woman, and she's got a tarantula.
I have
I,
never seen anything attractive about a spider. Any
y-
spider. Agreed.
well,
Oh,
I don't know that that would be a terribly appropriate pet for an older adult, but who knows? I mean, everybody likes different things, right? So you don't necessarily count that out. It could be rather entertaining for someone.
well, I did have the experience of a parrot once. A great big African gray, Congolese gray, I think they called him, a beautiful gray parrot with a crimson tail. And it lived in a restaurant that I frequented, and in a cage, of course, but it was huge, big bird. But it was very intelligent and very responsive. Once it got to know you, it talked and chortled and let us pat its beak and everything. I think it would be very entertaining. I don't know how much work it would be to have a large bird like that, but certainly he was a remarkable companion for the restaurant owners and for everybody who came in. I don't know. Does anybody have experience with parrots?
Um, I, I don't, but my daughter, not my daughter, my niece worked in a pet store, and she said that the cost of feeding them is really high.
I would.
They eat a lot, and it has to be high quality food. Um, and I think it's vegetables and things, but certain kinds of
Fruit.
things.
They eat a
And
lot of fruit. Fruit and
yeah,
nuts. That's what it lived on.
yeah. So as far as that goes, it's an expensive pet as far as feeding it. Um, I've heard that they live a very long time, and it's not unusual for your parrot to outlive you. And so that it's handed down in the family down to the next, because they'll sometimes live 40, 50 years. So
It does remind me of a consideration that I think any older adult should take into account if they're going to have a pet. And that's if they do leave this world, have they made provision for that pet to continue on? Have they ensured that someone will take care of it?
Very good point. Very good point. Yeah.
One
Yeah,
of
and
the
you know
things
that
that,
that's not something we ever considered. I don't know
yeah,
why.
okay. A friend of ours is very much a dog person, and she's had a number of dogs, but her husband's not really wanting the responsibility of a dog anymore. So what they have done, and this is, I think, an option for older adults if they're uncertain, or even if they're just not wanting to make a complete permanent commitment and yet get some company, and that's to foster an animal. Now you have to be of the right mindset for this, I know, because quite often fosters are rescue animals and they can have their own particular personality issues because of their backgrounds. But she's done this for some years now, mostly dogs, but she currently has 2 cats. So that is an option for someone if they're not 100% sure to at least provide a home for an animal that needs it, and be useful in terms of contributing to a situation without having to make a full-time, or sometimes even it's a financial resource commitment.
Yeah.
That's an
So
interesting.
I'm going to have to leave you all, but this has been very nice. I have to go because I'm going shopping for the first time in a year and a half. I mean, to something other than a grocery store. So I'm really quite excited about my excursion. So I'll see you
Well,
next time.
thank you
Bye.
for joining us, Lynn, and enjoy your shopping.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I'm
Just
sorry,
pick,
you're gonna say.
I was just going to pick up on Myrene's point there too. It gave me an idea because one thing I've been thinking about is getting a dog again. However, I also want to travel. So that isn't really an option for me right now, and certainly wouldn't want to take um, get a dog knowing that I'm going to travel. And uh, uh, my experiences with having dogs on airplanes, and it's just not fair, or in vehicles for long trips. So, but I was just thinking about your point, and perhaps there may be people in the neighborhood or family that would appreciate having their dogs walked while they were at work. So, um, yeah. So thank you for that point.
Or even to be even to dog sit for and that might be added income for a senior person. They could dog sit and have a little bit of extra income, get the benefit of the companionship, and yet not with the total responsibility ongoing. So that might be an option.
Well,
As we do,
even, go ahead.
no, I say as we do. That's what I'm doing today. I can get my dog fixed.
Yeah.
It's like grandkids. I can get my kid fixed and then take them home.
But I
Well,
you brought up
we're,
a very good point there, Maureen, a while ago. We have to have contingencies for our animals in respects to if we want to travel, if we or if something happens health wise, that we're not able to take care of our pets for even a short term versus a long, ongoing.
Yep.
And I think that is as something that you need to take into account when you take on the responsibility of an animal.
yes,
Yeah.
what we did when we were traveling and we couldn't take our dog with us, we were very fortunate. We had a niece who would come and stay at the house, and she would dog sit and house sit. And so the dog wasn't disrupted, and certainly as dogs get older, they can get quirky, and ours did. So it was very thoughtful to be able to leave him in the home that he's familiar with and have someone come and look after him here in the house. So that worked out for us because it was also nice knowing that someone was in the house and taking care of things and for security and that sort of thing.
That's a very beneficial arrangement if you can get someone that you can trust. We have had done that in years past, and yes, it worked very well.
Mhm.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. One of the things can we bring into the fact that I think that some of our seniors' homes as well, I'm seeing more and more that they have resident pets, you know, or have allow pets to come in to visit some of the residents and stuff. And I think that's really beneficial because, like you mentioned, Kathleen, you know, for somebody to, they may not respond to anything else, but maybe if a cat jumps in their lap, they'll sit there and pet the cat. So there's connections that can really be done in respects to that. I think pet therapy, I think, is becoming something that is one of the tools that they use in seniors' homes, senior
I
facilities.
have heard that. Yes, definitely. And I'm very happy about it. Years ago, I read a book, one of the chicken soup books for the volunteer. And one volunteer was talking about a dog that had come, she had inherited, and she ended up taking it to work because she was a nurse in a home. And long story short, one of the residents who wouldn't respond, hadn't for 6 months to anything or anyone, started to respond to the dog. And it was a feel-good story. The other thing that reminded me of was a news item I saw yesterday when I was flipping through. What was I looking at? I can't remember. It was a magazine I was looking at. Reader's Digest. That's what it was. And they had a therapy horse in the hospital. And I'm trying to figure out how you do this down the hospital corridors. I hope it's a calm horse, but they did.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I read that story too. It was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I've heard of some of them having llamas, bringing llamas into to a nursing home as well, which is really quite fascinating.
Yeah, for sure.
When thinking about a dog, you need to consider whether or not you have a fenced yard, whether you need a yard for the animal. And something I hadn't thought about, I just was visiting a friend last week, and her little dog is too little to let out by itself. So every time it needs to go out, she has to go out with it because the crows have taken an interest in her little guy. It's a Maltese Yorkie, so they call it a Morkie. So it's only 4.5 pounds. And she said that she has to protect her little guy because the birds would grab him. So I hadn't thought of that. Also, the other thing, if you're in a condo or you're in an assisted living situation, whether or not pets are allowed and which pets are going to be allowed. Dogs tend to be the ones that they will not permit, and they'll let you have a cat before they'll let you have a dog.
Yeah.
Sometimes for noise. One of the things that just crossed my mind, we looked after a couple of Yorkies for a while. So I can see the issue with the crows, definitely, they you know, as predator birds. But someone was talking earlier about you have to let them out rather than scoop a litter box. You actually can train the smaller dogs to use a litter box. You just have to be careful not to put litter in it. You have to put something that they can't eat because they'll eat it.
Yeah.
But you can train them to do it. I had already started with the ones we were looking after with puppy pads, and they were doing it. We have a walk-in shower, and I had the litter box in the shower, and they went in and used the litter box. So in the middle of winter, you don't have to let them out, or in the middle of the night. It's a thought, you know, we can adapt if we have to certain situations.
So what did you put in the box, Maureen?
Well, I had papers because I was still training them at the time.
Okay.
And puppy pads, and
Okay.
they were fine with that. Yeah, and I had actually cut out a lip because Yorkie puppies are pretty tiny. We went from a wolfhound to Yorkies, and I had cut out one of the sides, and they would hop in and out, no problem. No problem. They were good.
But I think one of the issues with dogs is the noise, is the barking, especially as smaller breeds have more of a tendency to be a little bit more yappier. We're lucky that this one isn't. He doesn't bark.
What is your dog for breed?
Pardon?
Is your dog a particular breed?
Yeah, he's a black golden doodle.
Oh, this one is a black doodle. Here you go. Here.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, no, he started out very black and now he's sort of grayish, but
Okay.
yeah, and his name is Jägermeister.
Oh, he has pretty ears.
Yeah, yeah, his name is Jägermeister, and he cuddles. And because he's master of the hunt, we call him, because in German, that's what it means in German, is master of the hunt. But he doesn't bark. I can count the number of times he's barked, and but we trained him right from the beginning not to bark. But so what he does is he groans. When he
Okay.
doesn't like something, he groans quite loudly, but he does, he does groan at you. But like I said, they're quite cuddly. But I think the golden doodles or any kind of doodle is becoming quite popular. You know,
Well,
with,
now that they've got the smaller ones, the miniatures and the toys,
yeah,
people were accustomed to having the full-grown golden doodles that were bred with
yeah,
the standard poodle, and now you've got the little ones, so you've got a lot of choice in size now.
yeah, yeah. And I don't think that one of the considerations we did when we chose a new dog a few years ago was because if we decide to move to a condo, what would be an acceptable size, you know? And so that's why we chose this particular size. But there, yes, you can make noise. But
Well,
I do think that that animals, I can't imagine being without an animal. I've had animals all my life, so I think they're really important. And if nobody else will listen to me, Jaeger will.
and they're so forgiving. If you're having a bad day, they just kind of let you have your bad day, and they love you just as much anyway. the the one thing I miss more than well, I shouldn't say more than anything, is like when coming home to the empty house, because I just love the greeting. Like, they're always so excited to see you, whether you've left them for 15 minutes or you've left them for several hours. They're just so excited to see you come home. So, yeah. The one thing, another thing to be considered when you're looking at a dog is how active they are, how high energy, whether they're the calm and less active, more of a lap dog. Um, what surprised me is that one of the biggest breeds, which is the Great Dane, is actually a lap dog. They are not high energy. They don't need a great big yard. They don't want to run around. They want to lay around. And if you're into big dogs and you're looking for something that's going to be really calm, that, believe it or not, that might be an option.
Yeah.
Something else, if I can interrupt on that basis, that I have read, because I haven't got personal experience, is that the greyhounds that are involved in dog racing are often available after their career is over, and they are not high energy dogs. Strangely, that's what I've read. They like also to be calm and quiet, and they're good for pets, apparently.
Funny you should mention that, because I did read that. They said the top two large dogs recommended for older adults are the golden retrievers and the greyhounds, and that's really surprised me.
But they're options.
Wendy, you were going to
No,
say
I was
something?
just gonna say, and there goes the stereotypes. Even in the, with our fur friends. Stereotypes are still stereotypes.
Well, it's still a consideration, whether you're going with a big dog or a little dog. The big dogs, when they get excited, they are more apt to bump you and maybe knock you off your feet if you're not too steady. They have larger appetites, so there's an expense involved there. Larger breeds tend to have more medical issues than the smaller dogs. And my personal favorite, big dog, big poop, little dog, little poop. And if you're cleaning up after your animal, to me, that's a major consideration.
I'm with you there.
Well, that was what, when we were trying to decide on a breed of a dog to get, that it came down to that. It came down to, yeah, we'd like the bigger dog, but we just weren't willing to pick up after a bigger dog.
Yes. And a lot of people don't pick up after their dogs. So
Unfortunately.
yeah, unfortunately. So I mean, it's something that I'm not. It's not one of my favorite things to do.
Well, small dogs tend to be a little bit easier to handle, especially walking them and bathing them. Uh, the they tend to require less exercise than the larger dog breeds. And if you get one, if you get too tiny, they're too small to take for walks. Believe it or not, you're not going to go for a long walk with a Yorkie. And if you think they're going to be able to keep up, and that's not hard on them, that just wouldn't be fair. The same thing goes with so you pick up a dog. If you want to go on long walks, you find a dog that can handle a long walk. And my husband found that the miniature schnauzer was a good choice, because my husband can't go on long walks, but he walks regularly. And so, if he can go for an hour and a half, then that was the right dog. And then looking at the energy level. And sometimes when you're looking at pets, it isn't even so much the breed; it's their nature and how they've been brought up and how they've been taken care of, whether or not they're a high energy or whether they're a calmer dog.
And I also think you have to take into consideration the cost, because on a pensioner's budget, the cost of whatever animal you get needs to be able to fit it within your budget as well.
Well, I know our son, they've got a large dog, and they're spending $75 a month just on dog food.
Yeah. So it needs to fit in with your budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, time, cost, and upkeep, that's a consideration. The other thing is, if it doesn't shed, then you're looking at grooming costs. If you're not willing to do the grooming yourself, grooming costs can be quite expensive. I groomed our miniature schnauzers, but on occasion when I didn't feel like it, it was costing $70 for a grooming. And that's something that you have to do regularly.
I have a question. Has anybody purchased pet insurance?
Oh, interesting.
No.
I have looked at that and I kept thinking, do we do this or not? And at this point, we never have, especially with this last one, we thought about doing that, but we haven't. And I don't know. I don't know anybody that has actually had to use pet insurance and how effective it was, having it. But it can be pretty costly.
We looked at it quite a few years ago with our little Shih Tzu poodle cross, and it was crazy expensive. So we just said, forget it. But I have a story about our poodle too. When we live in a bay and there's a crescent that goes around us. And my husband used to tell me when I used to come home from work, because I was the last one coming home, he would be waiting at the door as soon as he could hear the car coming around the back part of our crescent. So they're pretty smart, these dogs. And it's nice to come home to be greeted that way too.
Yeah, it certainly is. But
yeah,
That's an interesting point, though, about pet insurance. I think if you look at the breeds or the types of animal that you're buying, if they have a tendency to have more injuries, like some of them have hip dysplasia and all these type of things, that you know, it it might prove well to get pet insurance. But animals, I think that are more crossbred, you know, various different animals that have more breeds in them, like more of a mix, have less health issues. So it might be the type of animal that you're having that might make it more interesting or more beneficial to have pet insurance.
I agree.
Yeah, I think so too. Um, I know that our son years ago, they had a Norwegian elk hound and they got it as a puppy. And the first thing they did is they bought this insurance. And I think they were paying something like $35 a month for this. Well, they paid this for years and years and years. And then when they suddenly had something wrong with the dog and they took it in, it wasn't even covered. And they thought, oh, good grief. And they canceled their insurance. So that's the only experience I know of with the pet insurance. So you have to really know what you're getting.
Yeah.
And like Doreen says, the bigger dogs tend to have particular health issues like hip dysplasia and things like that. Each breed might have its own issues, and to understand that before you pick one out.
Yeah.
The other thing is, how long is your pet? You know, when you're trying to decide on what kind of a dog to get, how long is what is the lifespan of this dog? Little dogs tend to live about you know 12 to 15 years is on average for a little dog. Larger dogs don't live quite as long. And as with any pet, when you're looking at it, um, you look at what the lifespan is of it. You know, if you're looking at a macaw and it lives for 40 years, that's something to take into consideration when you're looking to get a pet. And the other thing is puppy. Do you get a puppy or do you buy a full-grown, fully mature animal? Um, Puppies can be a lot of work, and they chew things up, and so there's that first year or two. They can be rather rather destructive and rather challenging to train and get going there.
Okay. Well, I see our time's almost coming to the end there, Kathleen.
Yeah, I did want to ask, what are people's perspective on whether or not to adopt a rescue or to adopt from a breeder? What are your thoughts on that?
I've done both, and I've had better experience with rescue animals than the breeders I had to deal with.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's depending on the quality of the breeder. And I think it's like anything, you have to investigate and look into the background on that particular breeder. Rescue dog, you don't have the history of that animal because typically they are a rescue dog and there's not much history. So you're taking sometimes a little bit more of a gamble about what, because you don't know. Um, so I think in both cases, you just have to be aware of the situation and do as much investigation as you can.
Okay, as Doreen is saying, we are nearing our time here. Let me just wrap up here. I want to thank everyone for participating in our discussion today. If you have ideas or topics that you'd find interesting and would like us to address, please send us an email at sask@carp.ca and share your ideas with us. Just send it to sk@carp.ca, attention coffee with carp. If you're interested in learning more about carp and perhaps getting involved, send us an email to the same address, sk@carp.ca. We are looking for people to fill new positions on our board representing the Saskatoon-Humboldt area, as well as the north, central, and southern areas of the province. Drop us a line and let's talk about whether or not you want to get involved with our chapter here. Please also let others know about Coffee with CARP, which we hold on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. Our next session will be on July 27th at 10 a.m. again, and the topic will be volunteering, the surprising benefits. I will leave you with a quote from Anatole France. Until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened. Till we meet again on Coffee with CARP, keep smiling and stay safe. Coffee with CARP is sponsored by Zoomer Wireless. For information on new phone, tablet, or cell service, check them out at zoomerwireless.ca. That's it, folks. Bye for now. See you in a few weeks.